Learn how you can use Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server to take advantage of things like pay-as-you-go and extended security updates as a service. This week on Data Exposed. Hi, I'm Anna Hoffman, and welcome to this episode of Data Exposed. Today, I'm joined by Sasha. Sasha, thanks so much for coming on the show. It's been quite some time since we've had you on Data Exposed.
I know, it's been a couple of years at least.
At least. Well, we're excited to get you back on the show, in the studio, no less. Today, we're going to be talking about Azure Arc-enabled SQL Server, and one of the things I really want to dive in to kick us off is pay-as-you-go. Now, I've heard about this for Arc-enabled SQL Server, but I don't really understand how it works, what does it mean, and how should customers think about using this. So I'd love to just pass to you and explain it to us.
Well, thanks, Anna. Yeah, really, it's a great question that comes up very often from customers. So before we go, let me just explain briefly what that actually means. So the traditional method of paying for software, SQL software, is buying a license, buying software assurance. And now you can also pay for the same through Azure. Now, unlike software assurance and license, which is a traditional method of licensing SQL software, pay-as-you-go allows you to pay for that license only when you actually use SQL Server, which means basically renting your license. And what we do is we allow you to pay only when your VM with SQL is running and when your SQL instance is active. Other than that, you will not be charged. Now, of course, you understand that because we charge only for the time where you're actually using the software, that charge is actually higher than the license plus software assurance you would pay otherwise. So it comes as a trade-off.
Right.
It's flexible, but more expensive.
It's the same with serverless for SQL database.
Exactly. Not quite, because serverless, it charges for the CPU usage every hour or every unit of time. We are not actually counting the CPU usage. We're basically saying, if it's active, we charge you for the entire VM as you run it. If you're not active, we don't charge you. So it's more kind of not as gradual as serverless perhaps, but conceptually very similar idea. Now, you would ask, why would I pay more if I can pay less?
Right.
It's a reasonable question, right? So I'd like to illustrate this as a following case. Imagine you run SQL Server as an intermittent workload. For example, think about Black Fridays, or think about payrolls, or a giving campaign, or any other type of software where you need to run it during a very sort of intense period of time. But other than that, you don't need to. So that is the case where basically you can take advantage of pay-as-you-go as your cost optimization option. Gives you more flexibility to actually reduce your cost. And we have a chart here to illustrate the difference. So as you can see on that chart, the pay-as-you-go option, if you think about the 3-year span, if you run all the time, it's by far the most expensive option. You will not be very cost effective in that case. But as your workload becomes more and more intermittent, you can see the difference. And if, for example, you have something that you use less than 33% of the time, this is kind of a rule of thumb, then pay-as-you-go becomes the most cost-effective option for you. So, for example, take a payroll case. You run payroll intensively, maybe a couple of days out of the month. Other than that, you don't need it. So instead of paying for the entirety of the month for the license of SQL, you can only pay for the usage during the 2 days of intensive running of your SQL Server application. This is just an example. So again, I want to basically highlight that magic number, 33%, as a rule of thumb.
Okay.
And this is a picture from the upcoming blog that we will publish around Ignite. So you can get more information about sort of that particular case there. in case you're interested in more details.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I think a lot of customers are going to have situations where they want to take advantage of this and see the cost savings. Are there other scenarios where you see folks wanting to take advantage of this sort of thing?
Yeah, I can bring up another case where you may find pay-as-you-go as a kind of a game changer. For example, we are offering customers using the older versions of SQL Server, like SQL Server 2012, which are currently out of standard support cycle because it's been there for 10 years. So as of July last year, you cannot get the standard support for that version, but some customers still run applications based on SQL Server 2012 because they're not ready to upgrade or not ready to migrate to Azure, where basically they get free additional extension of the support. So we have this product called ESU, Extended Security Updates, which allows you to apply critical updates to your application even if it's out of the standard support. Now, ESU, you can purchase it for additional 3 years, but you must have software assurance. So if you basically have been running SQL Server with the license and software assurance, you can certainly purchase ESU and get this additional 3 years of the updates. Now, imagine a situation where you decided at some point to stop purchasing SA because you feel like your software is going to be out of standard support. You decided to save some money and you decided not to renew software assurance. And now you're facing the situation where you thought you would be migrating to Azure, you thought you would be upgrading, but you can't yet. You're not ready yet. So you need to buy yourself some time and continue to receive the extended security updates. How do you do that? You don't have a say. You cannot just buy a say. There's no such an option.
Right.
So pay-as-you-go comes in very, very handy in this case because pay-as-you-go, if you start applying these payments, it includes all the benefits of software assurance. So now you're completely entitled to buy ESU because you need maybe additional year before you upgrade or before you migrate to Azure. So that's how you can basically work around this sort of a little bit of a situation you got yourself into and basically be able to buy the important service for yourself and your application because it's a security issue, so you have to be covered. Right. That's how you can use pay-as-you-go as a method of overcoming the difficulty here.
Awesome, cool. Makes a ton of sense, Sasha. Hey, Sasha, thanks so much for coming on Data Exposed. I learned a lot just from you explaining this. I think our viewers probably did as well. To our viewers, we're going to put a link to the blog in the description for you to learn more. Feel free to like this episode or leave any questions or comments in the comments. And we hope to see you next time on Data Exposed.